Now, once you're in your company, we have these icons here which says file, edit, process, view, change, and so on. That is what we call the menu bar. We have this icon where it has pictures, and that is now the toolbar. So in order for you to navigate through the system or through the company that you have created, you can either use a menu bar or the toolbar or even the Explorer. This white screen which is open, it is called the Explorer, and you can also use it to navigate through the system or the company that you have created on the system. Now, we are going to understand the chart of account, and we can do that from the Explorer. So as it is now, we are at customer when we are using the Explorer. We'll come to supplier, and then we'll come to inventory item. So far, if you go to customers, it says 0 because we have not created any customer accounts yet or master file accounts yet. Suppliers is also 0 because we have not added any of those yet. Then you go to inventory, it's still also 0 because we have not added any inventory items. If we go to general ledger, we do have already accounts, and it says 117 accounts. Just because when we create a company, we select a chart of account. Now, that chart of account has already created general ledger accounts. So in this case, for this chart of account that you have chosen, we have 117 accounts. You might find yourself that if you select another chart of account, it might have only 100 or 90. It depends on the chart of account that you have chosen for that company. Now, we need to arrange these accounts because if you go to this column, it says code, financial category, and description. Now, here you can just use your normal way how to enlarge the rows or the columns, just like when you're doing it in Excel. So the code is now the general ledger accounts that we need to understand. And then the financial category, it means that each GL ledger account is linked to a financial category, the type of account it belongs to. Now, right now the accounts are not sorted. So we need to do some sorting so that we are able to arrange them in order and for us to understand the chart of account much easier. So I'll normal click on code, on the word code. Once you click on code, you see that it's highlighted. Then while your cursor is on code, you right click. If you right click, then you will get those options. We want to sort these accounts ascending, meaning from the least to the highest number. Now, thereafter, in order for me to remove all these highlights, I can click anywhere, even at the second line, then it removes that highlighting. And I'll just go back to that first row. Now, as I said that once you understand, or maybe if I will say it again, once you understand one chart of account, you will be able to navigate or understand the other chart of accounts, which are 22 chart of accounts that are available on the system already. Now, what you need to understand is that from chart of account, we have two types of accounts, what we call main accounts and sub accounts. So the main accounts are, as you may call them, as the, in other words, if you have maybe the parents and the children, which are the sub accounts. So the main account has 4 digits, and the 3 digits which belongs to the sub accounts are triple zeros. All main accounts, if you see an account where it has the first 4 digits, like in this case 1000, after the slash, the 3 digits represents the sub account number. Now, if you find yourself that you are dealing with a sub account where it's only triple zeros, you will know that that account is a main account. Like in this case, sales is a main account, which is allocated 1,000. Now, the 1,000 number range means that in every other chart of account, the account allocated to 1,000 are sales, or in other words, the income accounts, because it depends on the chart of account. Because if it's a service chart of account, then it means you're talking about fees, income, or revenue income. So it means that the 1,000 category or range of accounts is allocated to the sales or the income or the fees. It depends on the chart of account, whatever you may call it. Then the next category or the next number range is the 2,000. Now the 2,000 is allocated to a financial category, cost of sales. So it means that the account number range are arranged to suit, in other words, also allocated to the same financial category. 2,000 belongs to cost of sales. Now, if you look at the first account, 2,000, and then with a slash, and then you have got triple zeros. The financial category says cost of sales. Description says cost of sales slash purchases. So in your manual accounting, you know that you normally sometimes also have to record against purchases. Now on the system, purchases and cost of sales is the same thing, or it's combined. I hope that is clear. And as you can see, that purchases account, it's 2,000 slash triple zero, which means it is a what? What type of account is it? Is it a sub account or a main account?
Main account.
Yes, it's a main account. And as it is now, it does not have any sub accounts, because the sub accounts will normally follow after the main account, and it will have the same main account number, and then it will have its own other sub account numbers. Now, while we're in the same category, and you see that the sequence that the system has allocated the number for the GL code, you understand, if you look at this, it says, okay, the first account for the 2,000 range, the next account is 2,100. And then the next number is 2,150. So it is going into in 50s, it is counting in 50s. So that is how the system has allocated those accounts already. And when you need to add an account, you must also follow that sequence, but normally you are not allowed to create general ledger accounts unless otherwise guided or told in a question that you must create them. Otherwise, you only create sub accounts, because main accounts are a bit complicated, not say complicated, but they're not straightforward. If you have to create a main account, it's only when you know what you're doing. Otherwise, you must be guided to say, do this and this. Then that's the only time that you're going to create a new account or a main account. Now, a main account, another name for it is also what we call a control account. So you can either say main account or control account. Now, if you come to another account, 2,400, the category, it is still cost of sales. The description, now description just means the name of that account. It is saying a recovery account. Now, that is a control account. Thereafter, it has sub-accounts. And as I said, a sub-account just means it's the children of the parent, in other words. So it means the sub-account will contain the main account number, 2,400. After the slash, now you start the numbers of the sub-account. So 010 is the first sub-account, And then 020 is a second sub-account. 030 is now the third sub-account for that recovery account. And you know, the recovery just means that just like when you're talking about variances and so on, that for manufacturing overheads that are absorbed or recovered, we will talk about variances and so on. So that is now already created accounts that you will either use when you're processing your transactions or not use them, because this set of accounts doesn't mean that you have to use all those accounts. It's just for you to understand which are the accounts that are already created that you need to work with whenever you are now about to process. But for now, you're not processing yet, but you're just understanding the structure of the accounts and the account number range allocations. So that category cost of sales is up until 2,500. As from 2,700, the system have allocated that number range to a financial category, the other income category. Now, with other income category, you will remember or you will know as accountants already, what do we mean by other income? Why is it called other income? Maybe if you can refresh my mind. Why is it called other income? When what happens?
It's income that is not related to trading activities.
Good. So that's why computerized accounting is also linked to your financial accounting knowledge. That's why you have those prerequisites for financial accounting 101, 102, and so on. Because it is already assumed that you have that financial accounting knowledge, you need to apply the same knowledge or the same understanding now, just using the system. So good. It means that it's just any other income that the business generates, but which is not from its main trading activities, such as discount received, interest received, and all that, and bad debts recovered. And we do have another account here now, 2,900 sundry income. So it means that any other income also, maybe commission received or royalties received, any other income, you can also place it under sundry income. Now, in cases that you find yourself with various income, maybe rent income and commission income, commission received income, that is where you start creating sub-accounts. The main account will be sundry income, 2,900. If you have to create the first sub-account, which is maybe rent income, because we don't have rent income already on the system, you create it as a sub-account. So you type in 2,900 and then 010. That's how you allocate it. You allocate the first sub-account number. And then if you go for now commission received, you will type in 2,900 and then 020. So that's how you add sub-accounts. Then from 3,000, you see that the system is leaving out some numbers, like now for the other income category, the number range stopped at 2,900. But then you will know that there's sometimes also 2,950 and so on. The system left out that, and then it allocated the next financial category, which is expenses, to account number range starting from 3,000. So you just need to understand how the accounts are allocated. And as I said, normally you are not allowed to create main accounts. You are allowed to create sub-accounts, not main accounts. But main accounts, you can create them if you are instructed and then you are given more guidance as to how you should create it. The 3,000 has now all the various accounts, expense accounts that you might find yourself with in other words, that a company normally have to pay for. Starting from advertising and promotion and so on. Really, you can read through all those expenses just to understand which ones that you have already. And if you come to, like, for instance, motor vehicle expense. Motor vehicle expense has a control account and sub accounts already created. So now for you, you just need to understand which general ledger codes you should use when you're about to process the transactions. So, and this is already done for you. So you just need to understand that when you see that you need to process motor vehicle expenses, you can remember already that it had sub accounts. So you must select always the correct sub account. Now the other expenses released, most of them has they're just control accounts up until the last one here. Travel and accommodation, it has two sub accounts where you will have to specify for expenses that were local and for expenses that are overseas. Now, so that is where the expense category ends. Another range, account number range, starts from 4,800, and that is tax, which is now the income tax. Know that the company needs to pay income tax for those who are eligible to pay tax. Now, we do have now two accounts, normal tax and deferred taxation. I don't think for computerized accounting we will go that much further or much deeper, having to calculate deferred tax and so on. No, we will just normally work with normal taxation. Because also, computerized accounting is not to say that it's now just resembling the financial accounting aspects, not all of them, but some of them, because if it has to be also too much comprehensive in financial accounting, then it might not be possible normally to capture transactions and calculate at the same time. But what we are covering is so that you are able to capture the transactions, calculate the amounts where possible, so that you're able to capture the transaction and print out reports. So if we have to talk about deferred taxation, it will be now too much of calculations, and then where you have where you needed more time to capture. So in other words, we are trying to balance, to strike a balance between calculations and capturing of transactions. So normally for computerized accounting, you just need to capture normal taxation and not deferred taxations. Then we do have another category on its own, 4,850 is allocated to dividends. And then that is where, when the shareholders have now declared dividends or paid, you can use that account, and that will be now treated as an expense account. But it is called, financial category is called dividends. So whenever you have to pay, you will debit dividends and credit bank. Then another category, shareholder, share capital. Now for share capital, you know that in your manual accounting, what type of share capital do you come up with? So you would normally have either what? Ordinary shares or
ordinary share capital, preference share capital.
Yes. Now on a system now you see that they are saying share capital, and then the description says share capital members contribution, and it's allocated 5,100. So in most cases, we will deal with ordinary shares. So once you have to calculate or record an amount for share capital, let me just quickly go to that document quickly. Once you are supposed to calculate an amount for share capital, normally it will be ordinary shares. Unless you are told it's preference shares, then it will mean on top of that, you are guided as to how to create another control account, which then you will call preference shares. So on the system, we only have that one account. So, and then normally it will just mean the ordinary share capital. So don't look for ordinary share capital and then also preference share capital. No, it will always be that ordinary share capital account unless you are told that create, because now for preference shares, you need to add another account. Now that account number, the number range should still be within 5,150 or in that range, because the next account number range 5,200, as you can see, it is already allocated to another financial category, and then says retained income. So that is how the account number range are allocated, and whenever you have to add an account, it must fall within the correct number range. But in a question that you already given the account numbers and everything, so don't worry about that. Just type in what account number that you are given. You don't have to find your own account number. As I said, mostly you will be guided if you are supposed to create a control account. Now, another category number range is 5,400. Take note of this one. 5,400, it is allocated to financial category shareholders loan. Now, shareholders loan, and then the description says shareholders, directors, members loans. It can also be another account when it comes to a sole trader. Normally, a sole trader, you will have to talk about which term. What will be the same thing for a sole trader?
Yes, can you repeat the question?
For a sole trader, that account, shareholders loan, description, shareholders, directors, members loans. You see, it says shareholders if it's a company, private company, whatever. Now, if it's a sole trader, we will talk about what? What term will we give?
Drawings.
Yes. Now, you are correct. It's just that you are asking while I've asked. So in other words, you should now answer to say that it is drawings. Yes. So if you find yourself that you have to capture information which says drawings, you don't look for drawings. It's the same thing as shareholders loans account. Then 5,500, it is allocated to long-term borrowings. The description, long-term liabilities. So whenever you have those other long-term loans like at FNB and mortgage bonds and all that, you find yourself that you have to create sub-accounts for that control account, because now this control account, it's just a summary of all long-term loans. But you know that normally you will have different long-term loans. In other words, even debenture issued can also be recorded against that account. And that is where you need to create sub-accounts. Now, for this other number range, 5,600, it says other long-term liabilities, where you will have your credit sales installments when you buy on hire purchase and so on. But normally we don't go that much further with computerized accounting, where you need to calculate all those amounts and so on. You will just work with this normal long-term liability account, and just have to know how to create sub accounts. That's all. And then this other one, even it says now deferred taxation provision, you might not have to use it ever because that said, you're not going to calculate the deferred taxation and all that for interest accounting. So the next category that will be always applicable or that you will use often is the fixed assets category. In other words, the non-current assets. Now, maybe in your manual accounting, you are used to computing, in other words, having that note, the PP&E note, where you have combined all your non-current assets. But now on the system, unfortunately, there is no PP&E. You need to record each class of assets individually. If you have now property, building or property, you then need to allocate or record against land and building. So you see that even though you've got land, an amount for land and an amount for building, it's just that one account. Don't create, in other words, don't create extra accounts or allocate it differently. So you know that if you have to create an amount for land or capture an amount for land or building, it's just that one account. And for a fixed asset account, it has a control account, because in other words, a control account also means that adding up what is in the sub accounts. In other words, it adds up what was captured in its sub accounts. So that's why if you look at the fixed non-current asset account, it has 3 accounts. The one account, which is the control account, the description would say net book value. Now, the first sub account, 010, that is where you will record the cost. Then in building a cost, the cost amount of the non-current asset. The second sub account, 020, that is where you will record its accumulated depreciation. And you know that you normally record assets at carrying values. So the net book value is where it will add up the carrying amount, or it will show the carrying amount. Now, on the system, it means you are not allowed to capture the carrying amount of non-current assets. You need to be given the cost so that you capture the cost separately, and then you capture the accumulated depreciation also separately because of the structure of the accounts on the system. So, in other words, when we're going to process later, if you look at your document, you are given these accounts, and as like for instance drawings, you know which account to allocate on the system. We just spoken about that. Buildings, machinery, motor vehicles, these assets, these amounts for computerized accounting, it is always the cost and not the carrying value, just because of the structure, how you should record it on the system. So whenever you see opening balances like this, and then you see the amounts for these non-current assets, you should always know that it is at cost. Those are the cost amounts. Together with the depreciation policy, you then need to calculate the accumulated depreciation as to when the asset was bought and then up until the beginning of this financial period. So then you calculate that figure, and then you record the cost and the accumulated depreciation amount. So you will not be able to capture the carrying amount directly because of the setup of the system. Non-current assets run from 6,000 100 up until 6,600. Now, there is also that last account, it says other fixed assets. So whenever you're given the information, you need to allocate, or in other words, capture the individual non-current assets against what is appearing on the system. Like for instance, whether it will be a computer equipment or an office equipment or furniture and fittings, or else there might also be a situation that you're not able to allocate them correctly according to what was already mentioned on the system. That is when you will use this other asset. But normally, it is very rare that that other fixed asset account is used. Mostly, the information that you're given, you are already able to record against existing non-current assets accounts already available within that chart of account. So don't always find an easy way that if you're not able to allocate them and then just allocate to other fixed asset account. Sometimes it might be correct, but you need to make sure before you use it. Then the next category, other fixed asset, 7,000. Now the 7,000 account is allocated to other fixed assets account, or in other words, other non-current assets, which then has to do with the intangible assets like goodwill, patent, trademark, and all that. 7,100, it's allocated to investments. And investments in this chart of account, it has sub-accounts. And mind you, it depends on the chart of account also. Some chart of account, maybe you find that investment doesn't have a sub-account. Then it means that you need to create sub-accounts as when you see that there's different investments. Like maybe you've got investments in at financial institutions, like at the bank, fixed deposit or 32-day call account, that's an investment. So you need to create a sub-account for that. Or else you might also invest in another company, maybe 5% investment in MTC or whatever. So you need to have a sub-account also for that. And then sometimes maybe the venture purchased, which is also investment. It might also need to have its own other sub-account. Now, like the one that we have, this chart of account, it has already two sub-accounts. The first investment, it says listed shares at cost. The second investment sub-account says unlisted shares at cost. Normally, you will not be penalized that much as long as you have the main account correct. So which means, let's say for instance, you have to record 5%, maybe or 10% fixed deposit account, which is now an investment account at maybe at FNB. Normally, we use unlisted shares at cost. But if it's now investment 5% in MTC, then you can use listed shares. So in other words, it specifies also in the question paper that this company is listed or unlisted. But basically, as I'm now just trying to illustrate that you will not be penalized that much. But what normally happens is that whenever you see what we normally work with in computerized accounting is that if you invest at financial institutions like bank, we use unlisted shares at cost. If you invest in debenture purchased, then you can use listed shares at cost. Or if it's just a 2% investment in another company, you can also use unlisted shares at cost. But as I said, as long as you have the main account correct, you will be given the mark. Another category or another range, like 7,200 is still investment, and then it says specifically that shares in subsidiary account. So only when you see information that leads for you to know that they have invested in a subsidiary account, then you can use that account. But otherwise, if it's maybe just 5% or 2%, then you will just use listed shares at cost account. There's also another investment, and then it says loans to or from subsidiary. So information will guide you as to when you should choose those accounts. Now, another number range is 7,700. It says inventory control account. Now, for this chart of account, the 7,700, it just says inventory. But if you find that you have chosen a chart of account, like for instance, a manufacturer chart of account, what will be the difference when it comes to inventory? What do you think? What do you think? For a manufacturer, when it comes to inventory, what is so special? No one to answer that.
Maybe the work in progress. Work in progress controller.
Okay. Yes. Now, that is where, as financial accountants, your financial accounting information already known helps you as well to understand the chart of account. Because for a manufacturer, when it comes to inventory category, you will need to look at also other accounts like inventory for raw material, inventory for work in progress, inventory for finished goods. So for a chart of account for a manufacturer, the inventory account cannot just be one account. So that is where you also need to understand, or in other words, your financial account knowledge should assist you to understand the chart of account. In this case, we have chosen a retailer because a retailer only has one type of inventory, which is finished goods. But for a manufacturer, they will not only have one type of inventory, they will have three types of inventory: raw material, work in progress, and the finished goods. So the system has to specify that so that you record the correct figures against those inventory accounts. So that's how you understand the chart of account. Category number range 8,000, it is allocated to accounts receivable. Now, accounts receivable, it means that here on the general ledger account, you will only have the control account for customer control account. And then when we come to supplier also, it will just be the supplier control account. Now, it means that the individual customer accounts are already not shown on the general ledger. They are shown at those individual subsidiary ledgers. And I'm sure you know about this from financial accounting. Now, also on the system, we do have the less provision for doubtful debts. It is allocated the same financial category as accounts receivable, and it is given 8,050 as the ledger account number. So you need to take note whenever you're supposed to capture the provision for doubtful debts or the allowance for irrecoverable debts. That is what the account that you need to choose. Now, another category, other current assets, and then the first one is 8,000 100. It says description, POS cash control. That just stands for point of sales cash control. Now, we are not going to deal with point of sales cash control. It is also another application or another feature that we are not using. Just like when it comes to payroll transactions, it is also another system that captures that. And here is just the control account. Just means that whatever is in that account comes to the general ledger accounts, but we are not going to work with it. Now, the most important account that you will be working with for computerized accounting is 8,200 account. And it's a control account. It says sundry customers. Now, any other current assets that you may come across are recorded under that control account. All that you might need to do maybe is to create sub-accounts where possible or where necessary. Otherwise, no need to create more sub-accounts. Like for instance, the first sub-account, it says, is for prepayments, deferred expenses. So whenever you have to record maybe prepaid rent, prepaid advertising, prepaid whatever, you can just use that same sub-account. Sub-account 20020, it is allocated already to staff loans, which means it is specific to staff loans. Never use it unless it is for staff loans. Now, here they're talking about prepayment. Which other current asset account that you might also work with when it comes to income? Which income is also other current assets? Is it accrued income or income received in advance? Which one is it?
Accrued income.
Okay. So, as what we have said, your financial accounting information or knowledge will assist you also in passing computerized accounting. Because if you're not sure which account that is also other current income or current assets, then you might not record it correctly. So which means that if you find yourself with transactions which relates to accrued income, you will need to create a sub-account also here, because it also just falls under sundry customers. So that's why the account number for accrued income, you will have to have the main account, 8,200, and then you allocate a sub-account 030, and then you just call it accrued income. We'll come to that when we're adding now the accounts. So that the other income, which is income received in advance, will be under which category?
Accounts payable.
Yes, it will be other current liabilities. We'll come to that. Okay, so while we are still at 8,200, the next number range is 8,400. and it's allocated to bank. You see the same says bank and not cash book. So those are our cash books. And you remember when we created the company, we specified that we need 2 cash books, and then the system have already allocated these general ledger codes by itself. The first one to the main cash book, which is the current account, and then the next cash book, which is the petty cash. So these ones, they are allocated already general ledger accounts. In other words, that then means that if you need to create a new cash book or a new bank account, you must think about the GL account number to be allocated, or in other words, to be created first before then you create a cash book. And I think we'll come to that because of cash account here. This cash account we are talking about is a cash book, the third cash book. And then this third cash book, we had to first allocate a GL code. Now this general ledger code that was allocated here, it says 8,420. It's just because we got the sequence from the chart of account. You see the system for the first cash book, the current account cash book, it allocated 8,400. The next cash book, which was petty cash, it allocated 8,410. So that's why if we have to add that third cash book, we need to allocate it to 8,420. So that's how you get to know which general ledger account code to allocate to an account that you're adding on the system. And you see that all these are control accounts because each cash book should be on its own. It cannot be a sub account of another cash book. 9,000 is allocated to accounts payable. And then that's where you will have your control account for your suppliers, accounts payable. And then it means the individual accounts for suppliers will be dealt with at the subsidiary levels, where you will record each individual amount outstanding for those suppliers, and then only the control or the add up amount will be appearing on the general ledger account. And we'll come to that later when you're processing. Now, this 9,100, it says GRN accrual account. We will never use this account because we are not even processing any food received notes. So there will be no time that we'll have to select that account. Now, some of these accounts, as I'm mentioning now, you need to take note of that. And when it comes to assessments, don't bother yourself trying to capture anything on those accounts because they're not using it for this course. Maybe in the real world, they will tell you when to use that account. And it will not be very difficult, just a matter of having transactions which needs to be recorded against that account, and then just record it. It's not going to be difficult. The most important account, 9,200, sundry suppliers. It also has sub accounts. The first one, 010. It's already allocated to accounting fee accrual. So when you have accruals, accrued expenses, for instance, and it has to do with accounting or auditing fee, then you select that first sub account. If it's any other accrual, maybe water electricity accrued, rent accrued, whatever expense which is accrued, you need to just select the second one, 020, other accruals. Now, that is where also if you have to record income received in advance, as we've just said now previously, it will be a liability, other current liability, and then you can create a third sub account, 9,200, 030. We will be doing that shortly. Now, we are almost done. 9,250, it is allocated to salary and wages control. Now, we will not basically process payroll transactions, but what we might capture, whatever which has to do with payroll transactions, like for instance, if we have to pay as you earn, the company is paying pay as you earn, and you know that normally the company will collect pay as you earn from their employees, and then they pay it over to the third parties, the source of revenue, for instance. So whenever you see that they've paid for pay as you earn, medical aid, social security, and so on, all those third party payments, you just allocate, or in other words, you use this salary control account, and we will not use further transactions on that. So only when you see that the company have paid on expenses on behalf of employees, then you can use salary and wages expenses account. Now, in other words, this one is a control account. So only when you see the company have paid on behalf of the employees, if it is for normal wages and salary, we do have an expense, because for the company, it becomes an expense. Let me just repeat what I'm saying now. What I'm saying is that employees are supposed to be paid by the employers. So it means the employers, when they are paying their employees, it's a normal business expense. And then that is where you will use the expense account, and then salary and wages expense account when they have to pay their employees. You know that when you are paying now your employees, it means that you are paying over the net earnings. And I'm sure when I'm saying net earnings, you understand, isn't it? From cost and management accounting maybe also. Do you still recall that? Now, net earnings, when the employer is paying the employees the net earnings, it is a normal business expense, and you need to record that against salary and wages expense. The moment that the company is now paying on behalf of the employee, which means that expenses which employees had to pay on their own, such as pay as you earn, but in this case, the company is paying on their behalf. That is what then you will use this account for, the salary and wages control account, which is the medical aid, pay as you earn, and any social security expenses, any of those expenses that are paid on behalf of the employees, you use that account. I hope that part is now clear. But as we go on with processing and capturing, you will still understand when we are using that account, don't worry. Next category, taxation. Now, the accrued income tax, which is not paid, it becomes payable. So on the system, whenever you have to record accrued income tax, there's already an account for it, and the description says taxation payable. Even though it is an accrual, you can maybe use it, you should have maybe used it under sundry suppliers here. It's not correct because it's already allocated an account on its own, meaning that whenever you see that the tax is not paid, you must select the appropriate account because it is having an account on its own. And do not add it here where it says other accruals. It will be wrong because it has its own account. If you record it against other accruals, it means you did not understand the chart of account. The same thing with dividends here also. Dividends has its own payable account if it's accrued. So you must select it as well and not recording it under other accruals. Then, provision for future expenses. We do have an account. It's a control account. Future expenses. Here, the first one, they say it's provision for insurance. The second one says provision for salary. What other provisions do we have? Which other provisions do we also have normally?
Hold
Come again. I could not hear you.
Provision for doubtful debts.
Okay, I got you now. Now you are saying provision for doubtful debts, which will not be correct just because if you had understood the chart of account, it's already available here. So it will not be part of provision for future expenses accounts. In other words, you cannot record it somewhere here or add a sub account here for provision for doubtful debts while it has its own account already on the chart of account. That is where you need to take note and understand the chart of account and do not create other sub accounts where there's already a control account for that specific recording. Another provision for expense that we normally come across is provision for dismantling expenses. And we don't have it on the system. So when you come to recording that, you need to create a sub account, 9,400 sub account 030. Here you can see it, 9,400 030 provision for dismantling expenses. So getting these ledger codes is from understanding the chart of account, and then you allocate it to the correct GL codes. Now, there is one account that you might still maybe have to add it if you see that you need to record it. Otherwise, then you can just leave it out, because normally you don't have to create sub accounts just because we have learned about them. You only create as when you come across them. If you have to capture that, that's the time that you create that sub account. The last important, okay, now the 9,500, it says VAT control account. So it means that if you have any maybe accrued VAT, then you can use that account. But this 9,510, it says VAT provision account. We won't have any provisions for VAT. Maybe you might use the 9,500 account, which says VAT tax control. You might use that, but not the VAT tax provision account. We won't have any provisions against VAT. The last but not least, which you will mostly use, is the suspense account. Opening balances, suspense account. That's the description. 9990 000. It's a control account that you will mostly use. And as you know, as accountants, that normally you do need a suspense account, but in the real world, the suspense account is always cleared after you have recorded transactions against that account. So for computerized accounting, we will use that account also when you're going to record our opening balances. You might also use it when you are capturing maybe cash book transactions where you don't know where to allocate those payments and so on, but you will be guided as to how and when to use it when we come to processing transactions. Okay. That is how you had to understand the chart of accounts. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yes.
actually, how to create a sub account actually.
Okay. We are yet to come to that. We were just at understanding the chart of account, where we had to understand there are control accounts, which are also called main accounts. There are sub accounts that needs to be created when necessary. So that is what we had to understand now. The next thing that we need to move on with is to create, going through how to create or edit the general ledger account or the chart of accounts. That's the next thing now. We had to understand the chart of account. Now we move on to editing the general ledger codes. It says you are requested to create and edit the following general ledger accounts. If we look at those accounts now appearing on your system, what can you see? The first two transactions, what those two accounts, what can you say about them?
Sub accounts
Of
of sales.
The sales main account.
yes. Come again. Okay, let me say it. So I got you what you said. You were correct. So the first two accounts, we can see that this is two sub accounts of the main account, which is sales. So I will only go through adding the first one, then you can continue adding the second one. The other one, 55010, it is also a sub account, so you can also add that one. Provision for dismantling expenses, you can also add it because it's a sub account. So in other words, these are the first four are sub accounts. So I will only do the first one. The other ones you can add it on your own. Next, the one which says security expense, and it says 4,700 000. What type of account is that?
Main account.
Yes.
Main account.
I think I'm dead.
Uh-huh.
It was me. Yes.
It's a main account, a control account, and it means that it was not on the system already. The moment that you create a general ledger account number, which does not exist on the system will automatically make that account a control account. So that becomes a main account. And security expenses, I don't know why it is left out from the expense accounts. Nowadays, all companies normally have security expenses because the company should be protected, but it's left out. So I'm now telling you now that that is the only expense account that you are allowed to create or to add without being told. The moment that you see that there's an expense amount that is allocated to security expenses that you need to record, add it on the system, on the chart of account, because each and every chart of account does not have this security expense, and you are allowed to add it. You might come across something like maybe staff uniforms. Also, if the company is offering uniforms to the employees, it becomes an expense, but it is also left out on the chart of account. That one you may also add it, because I don't know, because okay, that one you can say that they can leave it out, but I don't know why they have left out security expenses, because each and every company has that as an expense. So that one you can add, you are allowed to add without any instructions. That's the only account that you're allowed to add without any instructions. Otherwise, other control accounts, you need to be instructed. Then the next thing, the next item is, it says cash account. Now the cash account is just a cash book. I told you that a company will have the current account at the bank. They will have the petty cash at the premises, small cash amounts where they need to pay those small expenses like the taxi fare for employees and all that. They might also keep large sum of cash. Then it means that you have to also have a cash book, which says cash account, cash book. Just like, I think that is just the same way as NUST. NUST also collects large amounts of cash. So I'm sure there's one handling that through the cashier. Yes, they're handling large sum of cash. So they will have a cash account, cash book, and they will have a petty cash account, cash book, and then they will also have a current account or check account, saving account, whatever, which is now the main cash book, where after they have deposited their cash, where the cash is now, I mean, the funds are lying at the bank. So we'll go through adding a sub account. We'll go through adding a main account, and then we'll go through creating a cash book. So that's what we're about to do now in the next few minutes. Then also I'll show you how to edit the general ledger. Now, editing the general ledger just means that you are changing the name of an account, which already exists on the system, and then you're only changing the name. So those are the 4 items that we'll be going through. Firstly, sub account, adding a sub account. Next, adding a control account. Then adding a cash book, and then editing a general ledger account. Okay. We are back at the system. We need to add the first sub account. You see that sales does not have sub accounts here. So I'll just add the first sub account, and then you can continue with the next one. Now, it is very much important for companies to have sub accounts, because they want to control, to see which sales are they receiving from which category, maybe from their products or from their accessories or local sales or foreign sales. That is where the categories or sub accounts comes in. It stems from categories. Now, going to add a sub account, you go to edit. On the menu bar, you go to edit. That is where you're going to find general ledger, and then you come to accounts. Normally the budgets, it will be something that will be shown in the real world when you are going to do your transactions. Maybe when you're doing your internship, starting with your internship, they will show you how they've inserted the budgets and so on. It will not be difficult. We will just go to edit general ledger, and then we deal with accounts. Now, once you have this screen, edit general ledger accounts, you need to understand, now it's here, it has icons which will guide you as to what you can do, add, edit, and all that. And then you can even save what you have done. And then you can search for it, searching through the chart of accounts, because now the main account number 1000, and then sub account number 000, description sales. So you see that the chart of account is the one that you are seeing here, because if you go to the Explorer, the first account was sales. And the first account is the same thing here at the general ledger account edit screen, where it starts with sales. So if I go to next, if I click on next here, I'll go to the next account, which was cost of sales, purchases. So what we are seeing here is the chart of account. Now we are editing the chart of account, and it's just the same thing as editing the general ledger accounts. I hope that is clear. So I'll just go back previous. I'm now at the very first general ledger account, and which is a main account. Then I'll first go through adding a sub account. Now, adding a sub account also means that it is a new account that was never on the system. So whenever you're going to add a new account, or it's a sub account or a main account, it is the same thing as when adding a new account which was never on the system. So you go to add. You click on add, and then normally with the system, please be patient, wait until it has responded to your request. Now, if I'm adding a sub account. Whenever you're adding a sub account, it means that you should have known already what is the main number account. I'm now adding a sales account, a sales sub account, so I know that the main account number should be 1,000. So I will type in the 1,000 already. Then I click on enter. When I click on enter, I get a message. Mostly you need to read messages. The system is trying to communicate to you, which is the user. So make sure that you read messages thoroughly and understand them, and then you react to them. Now, two types of messages. One, which is now the current one, which is a blue icon with a question mark. That's just a information or a warning message. It's not an information message. If you see a red cross, a black cross, I will come to that. It is now an error message. That is what you're about to do is wrong. Now, in this case, when you just see a blue with a question mark message, it says you are correct, and it's just confirming that is that what you really want. Now it says you are about to create the first sub account of a main account. Now it just goes to say that it is a control account. If you continue, Pastel will update all reference to this control account in a setup screen to point to the new sub account. Do you want to continue? Now the other further information is not necessary. It's just telling you that normally whatever is in the sub account will be added up in the control account. So in this case, you just click on, do you want to continue? You say yes, because that's what you want to do. Then it opens up the sub account number record 010. Then you click on enter on your keyboard just to come to the next line. Account description, that's now sales. Is the first one accessories or products? Okay, the first one, it says accessory. Accessories. Now, what you need to observe is that when you are creating a sub account, the main account here, where it says either it's income or balance sheet, these are still the old terms. It is grayed out. This area is grayed out just because a sub account contains what the main account has already. Meaning that an account on the general ledger, whenever an account is created, it must be linked already to a financial category and a report writer category. Now, if you create a sub account, you don't have to worry about whether the main account is an income statement or balance sheet item, whether the financial category is correct, or and so on. That's why you are allowed to create sub accounts. But when you are going to create a control account, we'll come to that. All this needs to be selected again because the system doesn't know what account it is. So that's why sub-accounts you are allowed to create because it's easy to create. You know what is the main account number. It's just for you to add the number that you want to allocate now for the sub-account number. And then the description that you want to allocate, and then you are done. So now when this is correct, all these other icons are grayed out. It means they are not relevant for this function. What is relevant now after typing in the sub-account number and the description is only two icons, either to save or to reject. Reject just means that cancel. If something is wrong, you cancel it. Maybe if you realize that the subcode number that you've entered here is not correct, then you reject and do it over. Let me just reject, just to show you. So if I reject, it goes back to where I need to type whatever was supposed to be typed correctly. So I continue 1000, and then it still gives me that message. Then I say yes, 010. Then I still type in, maybe I had to correct now. Now it's correct, I can say save. Now, let me just quickly continue with the next sub-account for sales. I'll still, because now I'm still in the adding mode. If I have to go out here, then it means I'll just have to close here. So I'll add the second sub-account just to show you again. 1000, that's the main account. Now, sub-account that I need to add is now 020. And then say sales products. So whenever you're going to record your sales, you must specify whether it is sales from the products that the company sells or from accessories. Accessory just means that the utilities that the company is using. Because sometimes the company might sell maybe their own, let's say for instance, maybe they've got stationery. Now, stationery is not their main products. So that sale will be now for accessory means that you normally use this stationery, but now you want to sell it. Maybe you've got too much paper, printing paper, and you want to sell it. That will be now sales accessories because you normally use it, but now you're just selling because it's too much in the business. Now, products, it will be the sales of your normal trading activities. So that's where the two category comes in. Or the two sub-accounts also comes in. Then I click on save. So that is now adding a sub-account. And I can close the general ledger. If I go back to my Explorer, just scroll it up. You see now sales, the main account with its two sub-accounts. General ledger now 119.
Ma'am,
Can you see
how
that?
to go back again?
Yes.
How to go back
How do I
again?
do it?
How to go back to this again?
Just close that screen. Let me just go again. I was at this screen. Then I went to add. Then I added those accounts. Then I just closed.
Okay.
Then you will be back at your Explorer. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I'll show you how you can add those other sub accounts. I don't have to go through all that again. Adding a control account. You go to edit, general ledger, accounts. Which control account are we adding that I said we should add? Can you still remember?
Security expense.
Thank you. Security expenses. I said it is left out in all chart of accounts. Whenever you want to record it or you come across recording it, edit. You are allowed to edit. And that account number, 4,700. Let me just go where I got that, just to show you where I got that amount or that number. If I go to my expense category, it started from 3,000. The number range started from 3,000. If I go to my last number for expenses, it was 4,650. And I saw that mostly the allocation numbers are going in 50s. So that's why I had to allocate now 4,700. Can you see that?
Can ma'am please repeat what she just said now?
I said, if I go to the document, this document that we are using now to create, edit, and so on, I've allocated 4,700 as the number for security expense. And it is a control account, a main account that was never on the system. So I had to follow the structure on the system to see, because this is an expense account. So I need to have a number range that is allocated within the expense accounts. If I come to my system now, I said expenses have ended at 4,650. That's why I came up with 4,700 is the account to be allocated for security expenses. I hope it's now clear.
Yes, ma'am, it is. Thank you.
Okay, good. Now I go to edit general ledger accounts, because we are now about to add a control account. It's just the same procedure. You go to edit general ledger accounts. When you come to accounts, I said, even though it's now a main account, where do we click?
Fingers to edit.
At add. Even though it's a sub account or a control account, you need to add, because it means all those accounts, I mean, both accounts were not on the system. So you go to add. I have already my account number range, 4,700, because I got this from the chart of account. If I click on enter, the system automatically closes the sub account number, because it recognizes that that account does not exist. So it becomes automatically a main account. And a main account has a lot of work, because you need to specify the financial category, and you need to specify also the report writer category. It's why you are not allowed to create main accounts without being guided with the question paper to say that create this account, here's the account number, here's the financial category, here's the report writer category. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to do that on your own. Description, security. Expenses. Now, that is where it becomes difficult. You know, for the sub account, this part was grayed out, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, because the sub-account, it contained what the main account had. Now that it's a control account, we need to think for ourselves, how will I allocate this main account? Should it be part of the income statement or the balance sheet? Now, if it's an expense, it will be part of the income statement, isn't it? Yes. If it's income statement. If it's maybe a shareholder's account or preference shares, it will go to balance sheet, something like that. That's how you come up with the financial category. So it is on income statement. So that is correct. Otherwise, I would have went to balance sheet, but that's not correct. I'll leave it at income statement. Once I go to income statement, here it says income statement, financial category that you need to select. If you had went to balance sheet, it will read as balance sheet, financial category that you had to select. But now I'll go back to income statement because it's an expense, it's under expenses. So here it says now unallocated income statement is not yet allocated to any financial category. And that is very dangerous, that if you have an account that you have created and you have not allocated to any financial category or not even to any reported category, you will not be able to print out any statements and you will get 0 for the assessment. That's why you are not allowed to create main accounts as you wish. No, you must be guided. So we need to allocate a financial category to this account. Will it be sales? Will it be cost of sales?
Expenses.
Expenses.
Yes. So you go to expenses. That is now we have allocated it a financial category. We are not done because report writer category, then the next line here is for report writer category. It says none because you know what happens is that the system should have this information because when you're going to capture the transactions, after that you will prepare financial statements. So that's why the report writer category is also important. When you're going to prepare it, it must be selected so that it goes to the correct report. Report writer category, I go to the down arrow, I find the correct corresponding category, which is expense. So for some accounts like this ones, it is straightforward. The financial category is the same as the report writer category. For some, it is not straightforward. I'll show you right now in the next few minutes. This account is easy because it's an expense account and financial category is expense, report writer category is also expense. But I'll show you somewhere the financial category is another name, report writer category is another name. I'll show you just now. So I'm now done adding a control account and I click on save. If I have to add still other accounts like main accounts or control account, I would have also just continued. But let me just quickly show you what I said before we run far behind. Okay, if I go to edit, general ledger, accounts. Now, I will show you an account where this two is different. Like now for sales, you see that the sales, it is an income statement account. Financial category is sales. Report writer category is also sales. It makes it very easy for you to create it because it's the same. But there's an account that those two are different. Now, it's already on the system. I'll just show you. In other words, if you are not creating any account, you don't have to click on add now. You need to search for the account. Searching, in other words, you can go to next record to go to the next record, but that will take long. There should be a shortcut just to go to the account that you need. Now I need an account for liabilities, 5500 to show you where it's different. So I'll not go through next until I come to that account. What I will do, I will use this search icon here. If I click on search, it brings already the whole chart of account. General ledger sum, which means that all the chart of accounts, the general ledger accounts are available here. And then I have an easy way how to search for the account that I'm looking for so that it becomes the first account that I need to look at. Now, the search could either be, you can do a search when you're searching for a general ledger account, either on account, which is now the account number, or the description. As it is here, which is Zoom sequence, it's on account. So whatever I need to type in, it must be numbers so that it starts searching through what it has already. Or else, if I go to description, whatever now, the information is now arranged according to the description or the name of accounts. Whatever I need to type in, it should be now letters, names of accounts. Here, zoom from, that is where whenever you don't need to come and click here, as long as you have chosen either description or account, and you need to just start typing in, whatever you type in will appear here, which says zoom from. Now, I know that account by account number, so I'll put it on account. Then I start typing in without pressing here, 5500. Once I do that, that is the account which is appearing here. Can you see here? Long-term liabilities. I need that account. Now, once it's the one which is now highlighted, you need to either click on enter select or double click on it. So you must first highlight the account that you want to
Miss,
access.
you are cutting so much. Your network is cutting.
Is it? That's NUST office
Yes.
network. Okay. Now, if you have to select the account that you are looking for, it will be highlighted. And then you either click on end select or you double click on it. So I'll double click on it. Then it will be the first account. Now, 5500, sub account 000. The description says long-term liabilities. Now that long-term liability, it is a balance sheet account. Now you see that financial category, it says long-term borrowings. But when it comes to report writer category, it says long-term liabilities. So that's why it's not easy for you just to create main accounts and control accounts, because you might not select what is correct here, and the system will then now get confused, and then it will not print out any reports. Then you will just get a 0 for that assessment, because with computerized accounting, we need to mark reports, nothing else. Okay, I hope the network is now better. Okay, let's continue with the last item, which is now just creating or adding a third cash book. Are we still together?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I hope
Yes.
the network will not disadvantage us because it's not giving me any signals here. How is that possible? Normally, if it's cutting, it tells you that your network is poor and all that, but it's not giving me any notification. Okay, anyway,
Ma'am's
I'll
network
proceed.
is fine.
So it would have been an individual situation, maybe, or what?
I think so, ma'am. I think it's a network that was cutting.
On that side.
Yes.
I also think so because normally if it's poor, it shows here, it gives a message to the person who's now the organizer. It shows your network is poor and so on. It shows, but for me, it is not showing anything. So it might be an individual situation. But anyway, I think the recording will be fine if you're going to listen to it at a better network. There shouldn't be any glitches. Okay, let's continue. The last thing, just to add a cache book. Now, adding a cache book is so easy that, as I said, that I already got the number sequence from the chart of account. Now we're adding the third cache book. So first of all, adding a cache book or a current account or a new bank account that was opened at another bank as an additional account, you first start with creating the general ledger or adding a general ledger, and then the system will allow you to link to it as a cache book or leave it as a general ledger. But in this case, we want to create a third cache book, so which is now the cache account cache book. We start with edit general ledger accounts. So we are adding a general ledger. So we go to add. What is the main number account?
8420.
Very good. Excellent. It shows that you are really paying attention, which is good. Keep it up.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. 8,420. Click on enter. The system knows that this account never exists on the system, so it becomes a control account. And it closes off that sub account number already. The description, you can type in cash account, because it's not a current account, it's not a petty cash, it's just a cash account. I don't want to add the word cash book here because all the others are also cash book and they don't have the name cash book. So we just call it cash account. Moving down, the main account. So I need to specify whether it's income statement account or balance sheet account. What type of account is this?
Balance sheet.
Balance sheet. It changes to balance sheet financial category, and then it says unallocated balance sheet. Click on the down arrow, and then you saw that for the cash book that the system has already created when we were creating the company, it had allocated that to bank. Report writer category, it will also be bank. Now, if you scroll to see here, I cannot see the bank category. It means I need to scroll down with this down arrow just to also move up. There are also other report writer categories down here. Bank is number 76. So now, please when we are creating this general ledger, I'm leaving out whatever is down here because we don't need it. Please do not add the text settings here, leave it out. You only concentrate on typing the main number account, the account for the main, or the number for the main account, and then the number for the sub account, the description. You come down here, you select whether it's income statement or balance sheet account, and then you select your financial category, and then you select your report writer category. Then you are done. Please do not do anything here when it comes to the text processing here. We'll do the text processing only when you're going to do the customer and supplier accounts. So that's all. Just click on save. Now, the moment that you click on save, it will give you this message. Now, I told you that this question mark is just a friendly message to say, are you about to do this or you want to do this, and not an error message. I'll show you quickly after this an error message. Would you like to create cashbook 3? You see, the system recognizes that you have went and selected a financial category, which is bank. And bank on the system is regarded as cash books. Do you like to do it or not? In this case, we want to do it. Yes, we want to create a cash book. So we just say yes. And then I'll show you later where that cash book has been now created. So that is how you add a third cash book. And then normally that it means that in the real world, that is when you add extra bank accounts which were opened by the business, because the business might only open one check account at maybe at Bank Windhoek. Later, when they start trading, they start opening a saving account at somewhere else. So that is where you add as cash books. Okay. So we will end here for today. We understood the chart of account. We created general ledger accounts. We add sub accounts, we added main accounts, and we have added the cash book. So all what you need to go and do just to revise is to add this mortgage bond, and then you go on to adding these accrued income accounts. You need to find out what is the account numbers from what we have said already. Now, there's one thing that I have not shown. Let me just quickly show you for 1 minute how to edit. How to edit the name of the, just very short. How to edit the general ledger account. Now, meaning that, for instance, I would like to change account number 5500. Right now, the description says long-term liabilities. Now, editing the general ledger account, it just means that you are changing the name of that account or the description to that account. So what normally you can do, you can go to edit, general ledger, accounts. Now, as I told you that normally if you go to edit general ledger accounts, you will be at the first account on the chart of account, but that's not the one that I want to edit. So I need to search through the chart of account. And I said you go to search. You can either be on account or description to find that account. So you go to 5500. I want to edit this long-term liability account. Then I said you can either click on enter select or double click on the account that you want to select. Now, editing the general ledger account just means that when you come to that account, you just click on this description and then you remove. And now maybe just call it, maybe let me just give it another name, long-term loans for instance. So that is how you just go about editing general ledger accounts. After I've added the name here, I don't want to do anything else, just changing the description, then I just click on save. So that is how you edit general ledger accounts. Or even while you are at the Explorer, and then you just go to the account that you want to edit. Like for instance, now maybe you want to edit what now? Let me just quickly check, because I don't want us to edit also a lot of accounts. Maybe if I go to sundry income, for instance, and I want it to call other income, where I am, I will just locate the account, then I'll right click. I can still also come here and say edit. It will take me directly to that account that I need to edit without going to search, because you have already searched it when you were at the Explorer. And then you can change this to income, whatever, but I don't want to do it. So that's how you change the name of the account. I hope that is not difficult. Okay.